One Texas A&M player that has exceeded expectations early into the 2024 season is Rylan Kennedy.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I have 5 players, 3 that have overachieved early into the season, and 2 that we need to see a little bit more from this year. Then I've got what do we need to see from the Aggies on Saturday when they face Bowling Green. And then lastly, I've got a couple of mailbag questions to run through. So we're going to run through all this today, but once again, I believe that the player right now that has overachieved the most based on preseason projections and what we were expecting is Rylan Kennedy. And, you know, he's played 55 snaps, so he's played a good amount of snaps. So he's a guy that has done a lot with not a ton. He hasn't been out there, but he's been out. He's been a rotation piece every single game. So far on the season, he's got 8 total tackles, 3 solo, 5 assisted tackles. But what really stood out to me about his performance early into the season is the pressure he's gotten. In, like I said, 54 snaps, 54 snaps. He has 5 pressures, 2 hits, and 3 hurries. I mean, you know, those are numbers. You take that when he's on the field, when he's getting after the quarterback, he is getting in the backfield, and that is really what you're looking for. And if y'all remember correctly, there was a point in the offseason, and it was it was very similar to the point last season where everyone was like, oh, man, maybe this Terrion York kid's going to be really good. Maybe this Terrion York kid's going to play, right? It was kind of that same point in the season, and in the offseason, and we're kind of at that point now where it's like, man, maybe Rylan Kennedy is going to be really good this season. And early into the year, as a rotational piece on this defensive line, he's gotten pressure. He's tackled ball carriers. He's done a lot well. And, I mean, he's going to be a guy that it feels like he's going to get a big sack this season. He's going to be the guy that's going to get in the backfield and get a sack for you. Maybe that comes up in a huge moment in a game or just in a huge game of the season. It's kind of given that feeling, that vibe right now. I think that Rylan Kennedy definitely has a special play in him this year. So I'm anxious to see who that comes against. But once again, early into the season, he's definitely turning some heads and he's playing really, really good football. So, and you know, that's not a ton of snaps per game. But the point is, when he's getting in the football game, he's doing a lot with a little. I mean, right now he's tied, or he's not tied. He is tied. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's tied for 5th with Ratcliffe and Lockhart for the most tackles on the team in 54 snaps. That is significant. When he's in the game, he's doing something well. And that's what you love to see from a player that's just rotational and coming in to give you some snaps. The next name I have on this list is Cyrus Allen, a name that we've discussed a lot last week, a lot this week here on the show. But, I mean, he looks like your wide receiver 1 right now. I mean, look at the numbers comparative. He's got 10 catches for 181 yards and 1 touchdown. I mean, some of the guys, we're actually going to talk about another one of the receivers here actually in a minute in the more negative side of this. Now, remember, we're not going to be quick to jump on the negative train on any of these players yet because it's early in the season. People are still figuring things out. This offense is still dialing in. We don't know, you know, this will be a conversation we'll have again in 3 weeks down the road. And then it's like, okay, we'll really see if this is taking shape. But Cyrus Allen, I mean, he's running a ton of routes. He's out there all the time. He looks really good. He's creating separation. He's just doing a lot well. And I know that, you could say, well, it's boosted by the 73-yard catch. Well, I don't know if that's entirely true. You take his 181 yards minus the 73-yard catch. He's got 108 yards on the 9 catches. That's 9 for 108 yards, 12 yards per catch. I mean, that's not, for this offense that, once again, I mean, like, look at this. Well, right here. This offense has thrown the football 72 times all season so far, compared to 131 carries. Coach Klein wants to run the football, which means numbers for these receivers aren't going to be boosted. So you got to take advantage of it when it's thrown in the air, and that's what Cyrus Allen has done to this point. So I've been very impressed with Cyrus Allen and the way he's played early into the season. The next name I have on this list is Armand Adams. I mean, there's always one offensive lineman, and I'm not saying that the other guys on this offensive line don't have that dog in them, because that's not true. But I'm just telling you, Armand Adams has that aura that you just look at him and you go, oh, he's going to kill somebody. He's got that mentality. You can just tell, just turning on the game, watching him play football, it's very clear that he's got that mentality you need to have to be a successful offensive lineman. He's been really good. His PFF grade has been solid. It's right around 70. He's done a lot well early into the year. And top to bottom, I think this offensive line is a unit that has as well. And I think Armand Adams is a huge reason why. So I'm fired up about him and the season that he's going to have. He's looked really, really good. And we're going to talk about this offensive line here in a minute, but you got to be fired up about this Texas A&M offensive line right now, just the way they're playing. And we'll get to that in a minute. We talked about it a little bit this week. One of the players that I think, and once again, when I say overachieved, we've still got a long way to go here. We got a long way to go before we can say anybody has overachieved or underachieved. But, I think that the duo of Noah Thomas and Ja'Day Walker has not done quite as much as I would have expected. And yes, I get it. I understand that this offense isn't out there trying to throw the football a ton. I do get that. I know that's the reality here. We just talked about the differential from passes to rushing attempts. So yes, I get that. I do understand that. But I think at the same time, I'm just a little surprised early into the year what these numbers look like. I think it can be the same on both hands. Noah Thomas, 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. 3 games into the season, I would have expected him to be closer to, kind of where Cyrus Allen is. And then I would have also expected Ja'Day Walker to be closer to, maybe a 20, 40, 30 yards behind him, but still right around there. And he's sitting at 6 catches for 31 yards. I'm just surprised. And yet, once again, I understand. I mean, there's only been 39 total, receptions, completions for this offense 3 games into the season. I just would have expected a little bit more usage for these receivers. That's kind of my take here. And I knew Colin Klein was going to want to run the rock, which makes sense. But I just would have expected a little bit more usage from these receivers. And once again, I don't even know if it's necessarily on them. It's a lot just scheme-wise. But still, I think that you would love to see these guys have some breakout games so you can have that offensive balance. You can have them available. If you need a big game from a receiver, one of them can be able to get that job done for you. So you'd love to see them have a good game at some point where they really blow up and do something really well, yards, touchdowns wise. And then the last player that I think you need to get going a little bit more is DJ Hicks. We were really expecting DJ Hicks to take that next step. Right now, his PFF grade's a 59.3. And once again, in the solid amount of snaps. And it's more like, if you look at the stats on DJ Hicks, let's go find him. He has 3 assisted tackles, and that's it. That is the only stat, he's in here for. Not any pressures, not anything like that. I would have expected a little bit more from the former top 10 recruit, the former 5-star, going into a sophomore year. We all expect him to have this explosion of a season. So, I think you'd love to see a little bit more from DJ Hicks moving forward this year just because he's so talented. You know what he's got in him. You know how good he can be, and you'd love to see that on display this year because we know the upside that DJ Hicks has. We're going to talk about what Texas A&M needs to do against Bowling Green, what we need to see, what we want to see to have confidence heading into the 2024, deeper into SEC play. We've already played Florida. So, as we head into get deeper into the SEC season, what do we want to see from this team against Bowling Green to give us confidence for those important games coming up down the road? We'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I'll tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So we hinted at it a minute ago. I think the number one thing that we need to see from Texas A&M against Bowling Green is more solid play from this offensive line. I think when it comes to positive surprises early into the 2024 season, the number one for me has been the play of this offensive line. We talked about if this offensive line can just be good. This was one of my huge offseason things. If this offensive line can just be good, I wasn't asking for great. I was asking for good. I thought Texas A&M would be in an opportunity to overachieve. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I think to this point, this offensive line has been really good. I mean, they've been great. They've protected the quarterback. They've created holes for the running backs. They've given the receivers time to get open. They've done exactly what you've asked them to do to this point in the season. So, once again, shout out to Coach Cushing. This offensive line has really looked good. I've been very happy with this unit as a whole. I think that you've got an offensive line that I think can help you win some football games, and that is what matters. At the end of the day, when you don't have an offensive line that can help you out, when your offensive line is a problem, it's hard to have offensive success. That's just the reality. It's hard to move the football down the field when you don't have a lot of success, don't have a lot of talent across your offensive line. And that's just not the case, once again, for this team. I've been very, very impressed top to bottom with this offensive line. Even like Ashton Funk coming in and playing 20 snaps, he's been really good. Cronover's been really good. Fothry's been good. Everybody that's been in the game playing offensive line has had a solid PFF grade. The PFF grades are really good top to bottom for the offensive line. And that is something that, like I said in the offseason, I don't know if I was fully expecting that, but that's the reality, and that's what we've seen, and they've been impressive. And that is a difference maker. When you have an offensive line that can move people, when you have an offensive line that can create holes and protect your quarterback, you're putting yourself in a really good spot to win football games. And that is what we have here in this Texas A&M offensive line, and I don't think we were expecting to have that heading into the season. So keep building confidence. One more solid game against Bowling Green, and then I think this offensive line is going to feel really darn good heading into, the deeper part of SEC play. Then, and I saw some people comment yesterday saying, sacks on everything. And I agree with that. I talked a lot about, I'm surprised by how few sacks the Aggies have at this point in the season. I'm not saying sacks are everything. And because they're not, but still the point is, I think that this defensive line, I'm a huge confidence guy in sports. I think it matters. I think having confidence is a big deal in sport, in football, in any sport. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, a lot of times when I get in trouble pitching is if when I get down 2-0, 3-0, I'd get in my head. That's the reality. You know how good this defensive line is. You know they're not going to have any issue getting pressure. So if you get a ton of pressure against Bowling Green, you get a ton of sacks, it's just going to make you feel better heading into Arkansas. And that's kind of the point here. That's what I'm talking about, is I think it just puts positive juju in the air for this team going against a solid, an okay opponent like Bowling Green. I think this gives you a little bit of confidence to get rocking and rolling and hopefully do some things well and get after the quarterback, because you're going to need to do that against Arkansas. So I think that I'd love to see some sacks. Not the end of the world if you don't, but I think it'd be really ideal if you could see some sacks in this game. I'd love, assuming that it is Marcel Reed, and once again, to this point, I don't think you're going to see any kind of announcement. You're going to see them ride this out as long as possible. Trying to see if we've got anything that's come out of late, and it looks like no. Yeah. So it looks like, it looks like it's going to be Marcel Reed on Saturday, ladies and gentlemen. And, this Arkansas game, it's going to be a pivotal one. I think that Arkansas, to this point in the season, has been a little bit better than I anticipated. They held their own on the road against Oklahoma State. That was on the road, right? I watched part of that. Or was it a neutral site something? Yeah, it was on the road. I was like, I watched it, but I couldn't remember. Losing overtime to Oklahoma State, who's a solid football team. Arkansas, I think, is Texas A&M the better football team? Yeah. But I think that Arkansas is, done a lot well. I mean, right now their quarterback already has 806 passing yards and 245 rushing yards. He's been really, really solid, in my opinion. He's throwing 2 picks, 3 touchdowns. But once again, he's done a lot well. He's been better than I anticipated. So I think that this team, the Aggies top to bottom, need to build some confidence in this game against Bowling Green. Would love Marcel Reed to have another good game, because I just have a feeling you're going to see him against Arkansas. I do. So that's something that I'm paying attention to in this football game. The next thing I have here is stop the run. I think to this point in the season, the Aggies have given up a little bit more than I would have expected on the ground. A little bit more. It hasn't been egregious, but we talked about it. What was that number? When we talked about that? Was that 2 days ago? Yeah, they've given up, I already forget how many yards. 143 yards per game on the ground. And that is not where I would have expected that number to be at this point in the season. So I'm definitely would love to see Texas A&M stop the run in this football game. I'd love to see them get after the quarterback. I'd love to see them, create havoc on defense. But stopping the run is the number one thing I'm paying attention to, because you can't let up a ton of rushing yards in SEC play. It's a recipe for losing football. So want to see the Aggies stop the run in this football game. Got a couple mailbag questions about the future with Connor Rigman and my updated thoughts on the win total after a 2-1 start. We'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, and rightfully so, because it is America's #1 sports book. We have something a little different for you now through September 22nd, which, once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's coming up soon. Jump on this now. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime you want. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook today. So this is an interesting question, and we're not quite there because there's still a lot to be figured out here. But looking at if Marcel Reed ends up taking over this job and not letting it go, I had a Twitter back and forth DM conversation with somebody yesterday about this, and someone was like, if Marcel wins the job, takes it over, what happens with Connor next year? And I'll be honest with you, knowing that Marcel Reed's young, has a ton of eligibility left, and then you got a really good quarterback coming in Longstreet, I would have to say I think Connor would hit the portal. And it's too early to have this conversation, but it was something I wanted to bring up because it's like, if right now you told me today Marcel Reed's the guy the rest of the year, yeah, I think Connor's going to hit the portal next year and go find somewhere else to play. I mean, that's just the reality of the world of college football today. I mean, there's too much available to these student athletes when it comes to the transfer portal. To where, and if I'm Connor Rigman, it makes sense. Connor Rigman's in a quarterback room full of really talented guys between Reed, Henderson, and himself. I think it makes a ton of sense to, just hit the road if it doesn't go well for you. I mean, that's just kind of the reality here. I don't believe it makes any sense for Connor Rigman to stick around if this does not go well. So that's what I think would happen if Marcel Reed does end up winning the job. And then someone asked my updated win total projections. And I'll tell you right now, sitting at 2-1, obviously take care of business against Bowling Green, take care of business against Arkansas. Then you're 4-1. And then I think that Missouri game, the Missouri game and the LSU game are going to be pivotal. If you find a way to win one of those football games, I think that 9 wins is very much on the table. If you beat Bowling Green, beat Arkansas, that's 4 wins. Beat Mississippi State, that's 5 wins. Beat New Mexico State, that's 6 wins. You got to take care of business against Auburn, take care of business against South Carolina, take care of business against one of those two teams, Missouri and LSU, and you can get to 9 wins. I mean, I think it's very realistic. I think that Auburn is a very beatable football team. I think that South Carolina is a very beatable football team. I think South Carolina is better than we gave them credit for in the offseason, but I also think they're very beatable. So, that's definitely something that I am excited to see how it plays out for this football team. But I think that 9 wins is very much on the win or on the table for this football team. They're more than capable of winning 9 football games this year. And I mean, you never know. If Marcel Reed ends up being awesome, there's an outside chance if you beat an LSU and you beat a Missouri that you can win 10. But I do believe that 9 is the realistic number for this football team. In the way this team beat Florida, the way this team looked against Florida, the way Marcel Reed looked against Florida gave me a ton of confidence in the Aggies being able to win 9 football games. That is going to do it for this week here at Locked On Aggies. Thank y'all so much for being here every single day. I really, really, really appreciate all y'all. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It helps the show a ton. If you haven't already, also leave a comment. Helps the show. Leave a like. And then if you're listening on a podcast platform, leave a 5-star review. That helps the show as well. Hope everyone has an outstanding weekend. Enjoy college football. Enjoy NFL football. And we'll see you next time right here on Locked On Aggies.